design. I'm joined now by Congressman Ted Lieu of California, who participated in today's subcommittee hearing, and Naveed Jamali, former FBI double agent and editor-at-large at Newsweek. Thank you very much. And Congressman, I'll go to you first. The sense I get of what Republicans are doing in these hearings is theater to try to destroy and disrupt the hearings. They don't seem to have any other purpose. Did you see another purpose at work?
I did not. They're trying to avoid the conduct of the domestic terrorists that stormed the Capitol on January 6th, as well as other domestic terror incidents. And there's a very simple question and answer as to why we're looking into white supremacist groups. It's because the data shows that they're far more lethal than other domestic terrorists. And you don't have to trust me. You can simply look at the former acting director of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, who said exactly that white supremacist groups are far more lethal in carrying out these incidents of violence.
I mean, the FBI has said it. Everyone who's testified on this with a national security profile has said it. You know, Naveed, it's almost as if Republicans are trying to invent. I mean, Antifa is their favorite word, apparently. They see Antifa under their beds before they go to sleep at night. And they've decided to just invent an Antifa that also stormed the Capitol, or invent some fictional black group that also stormed the Capitol, that they don't exist, and there's video. Can you just go through, as somebody who's been in the FBI, who's in the national security world, who are the greatest national security threats to the United States?
Without a doubt, Joy, it is violent and extremist, separatists and white nationalists. You know, this is not a new trend, Joy. This is something that has been on the rise since the 1970s. It's been deprioritized, but under the Trump administration, it really gained momentum in the fact that Trump really made a big tent for all these groups of hate to come together. And look, we saw it on display on the 6th. We had Oath Keepers and 3%ers, along with QAnon, all together, working together to storm the Capitol, something that hasn't happened, you know. And I think that this idea that this is an organic movement is false. I think that one of the things that should be looked at is, you know, where's the ideological base? You know, when we talk about terrorism, we know that there are foot soldiers, but there are other people like bin Laden on September 11th who are directing this, who aren't the ones who are actually flying the planes into the building. And who are those people, and who's directing this?
One of them is Donald Trump. Here's Tucker Carlson, best flat out refuting Merrick Garland when he testified in his confirmation hearing to head the Department of Justice about white supremacists being to blame.
There's no evidence that white supremacists were responsible for what happened on January 6th. That's a lie.
And now here is the police chief, the Capitol Police Chief, Stephen Sund, and other security officials saying white supremacists were involved in the Capitol attack. Take a listen.
Would you agree that this attack involved white supremacists and extremist groups?
Yes.
So it's very clear, Representative Lieu, they're just pretending not to hear that sort of thing. Do you think that part of the issue is that some of the people who are on these committees were placed on these committees to disrupt them because they themselves are in part to blame for the Capitol siege, because they themselves supported the big lie that sent those people there?
That's a great point. So these domestic terrorists on January 6th, they weren't coming for people like me because I happen to be Asian American. They were going to try to stop the counting of the Electoral College votes because of the big lie. They wanted to stop the steal. And if Republicans wanted to unify our country and reduce the risk of further political violence, all they have to say is one simple, truthful sentence: the election was not stolen. Many of them still cannot say that, and that's one reason we still have National Guard troops patrolling the Capitol in full body armor.
And so I wonder, Naveed, what the price of this theater is, because it is just theater. They're just mouthing words to theatrically support the former president, to sort of create a fake sort of whataboutism. Let me let Val Demings, let me turn it over to Val Demings. She talked about these committee members who were just playing games. So let's listen to Ms. Demings, Representative Demings.
Aren't we tired? Aren't we as a nation exhausted? Haven't we had enough? Doesn't this issue deserve more than a political debate, a lackluster and half-hearted response? And if my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to keep score, you will lose.
And, you know, Representative Demings is a former law enforcement officer. She's a former mayor. I mean, you know, Liz Cheney is even saying, look, guys, we got to make sure that we got to make it so we're not the party of white supremacy. It doesn't seem her party's listening. From a national security standpoint, Naveed, what are the consequences of having a party say, no, Liz Cheney, we want to be that party because we're the party of Trump, and if he's for white supremacy, so are we? What are the national security consequences of that?
Well, look, we've heard everyone from the DHS, the FBI, consistently say that one of the biggest threats that faces this country from a national security standpoint is homegrown extremism, specifically white supremacists and white separatists. So if we can't even agree to that factual statement, which is very straightforward, there should be no daylight between anyone. When it comes to national security, this is never a partisan issue. But when you have one side that refuses to admit the factual premise that white supremacy is in fact real and is in fact a threat to our national security, how do we come together to combat it? How do we protect this country? Right now, we can't because we have a good part of the Congress that is, as Congressman Lieu is saying, is refusing to even agree to the most basic, straightforward facts.
It's a problem. And, Congressman, I suspect that if you go into the offices of these Republican members, they've got Fox News on churn, that when they go home, that's what they're watching, or they're watching right-wing media, or they're reading, you know, whatever, Breitbart or whatever. Is part of the problem here that the incentives that your colleagues on the other side of the aisle have are all about what these media people say, and that their fears are all about that because that's where their voters get their information as well. And so they can't help you and they can't participate in a real way in these hearings.
Unfortunately, you are absolutely right. It's not just that they fear the former president. It's that they fear their base. And their base is watching Fox News, spewing lies. I find it really funny when he showed Tucker Carlson saying that QAnon doesn't exist because he can't find their website. He might just want to check out the Fox News website, who on February 8th published an explainer on QAnon and everything about QAnon. So you have Fox News and Tucker Carlson spewing all sorts of stuff to the base, and then that base gets angry at their Republican member in Congress, threatens to take them out in the next election in the primary, and that is what keeps these Republicans in fear in Congress.
And I don't know how we get anywhere based on that. Congressman Ted Lieu, Naveed Jamali, thank you both very much. Really appreciate it.